Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Damien, if you're still in the room there. This is Comic Crack, and welcome to the show. Um, so, we're going to take a look at the John Thompson book that I just got in. Just kind of setting up, and I kind of started reading the Doctor Strange side, or the Doctor Strenge side, I guess. I don't really know. I have Blab out because when I was doing some looking online, Comics Joint, my kind of go-to site, doesn't have any information on this book particular. But in doing kind of some digging, this issue of Blab was mentioned, number 3. I only have 2 issues of Blab, and fortunately, the John Thompson stuff is in one of those issues. So in this particular one, there's quite a lot of pages where artists are, hey Damien, how's it going? Where a bunch of different artists are just talking about Robert Crumb. So there's a few pages here of John Thompson, and talks about when he met him, I believe in 1967-ish. And he kind of just talks about the next couple of years. Talks a lot about Crumb, and like we've spoken about before, him and Joel Beck and Crumb, John Thompson, Joel Beck, and Crumb were looking to kind of push Yellow Dog to do comics issues. So he reiterates that here. Shortly after the first Yellow Dog is when apparently Crumb did the first Zap, and it's one of those stories around underground comics that has changed. Well, not changed, but there's always new people that are added to the equation. Apparently John Thompson and Crumb were out there selling that Yellow Dog on the streets. When Zap #1 came into being, John Thompson says he was there with him as well, too, doing the same deal. What was a little surprising about this, he does talk about himself and how he was feeling at that time. And one of the things that he does speak about in here, which I've heard elsewhere, was that he wasn't a fan of a lot of these cartoonists, these underground cartoonists. He liked them. He seemed to get along with them. But he talks about the first time they met S. Clay Wilson, and how kind of he was just not into his art. He really liked him as a person, was not into his art whatsoever, wasn't into Rory Hayes. And talks about the kind of women that were in their circles were just kind of getting more and more offended by the portrayal of women. And John just kind of talks about how he was trying to do something completely different. You know, he didn't want to fall into that. He liked portraying kind of the beauty and things and stuff, right? So, and he was saying that Crumb enjoyed his rock posters and stuff, but didn't really get into his comics too much, which, you know, completely makes sense. He also talks about kind of suffering from a pretty deep depression. He divorced his wife, or I guess they got a divorce in, I think, 1969 is what he said there. And he really fell into a funk is what he was talking about. And I guess had kind of worked on that for a couple years. And kind of by the end, he kind of wraps it up by saying, as much as he enjoyed, he doesn't often relive these times, is basically what he says, just because of how he feels about things, especially in hindsight, and kind of where he was mentally at the time. So this comic comes out in 1973, in an edition of 1,000 copies. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't reprinted. So surprise, surprise, we'll just kind of dive right into it, and I'll just show you. I have the camera handheld today, so I apologize for the shakiness there. As to be expected, this Doctor Strange story is just filled with sex, and basically this couple having sex. They don't name her. It is Doctor Strange that she's having sex with, but through this act, they enter the astral zone and kind of leave their bodies and travel through time and space. So the entire strip is just made up of that kind of dialogue where, you know, Doctor Strange and I making love inside his home on Bleecker Street, New York City. The midnight air is sun with our fragrances. our nectar's moving to the hymns of breathing stars, hips and thighs gliding into choruses of ether. So, you know, you get a sense of it there. But so this is about magazine size. It's a little bit taller than a regular magazine. I should have actually pulled one out just for comparison. And I think that's the most incredible thing about this, is seeing Thompson's work in this scale. And here we go with that puzzle motif again that we've spoken about in the previous videos. But there they are, shooting off into the ether. And I mean, like the rest of the books that we've looked at so far, this doesn't disappoint. It's really, really incredible. And when we flip to the Conen side, you'll see a different kind of style of storytelling there. Not much else to say about it. I mean, you know, I loved the last couple of books that we looked at, the Sphinx comics, and I thought the storytelling in there was really, really great. This kind of leans a little more poetic, I guess. It's not horrible, but there's really not much to it. It's just this kind of continual discussion about riding surf upon churning waves of gravity. We fall miraculously inwards to the imploding fountain of 100 billion suns, the eventual bullseye. So things like that. But I do like some of the touches. I do like his lettering too, actually. Let's see if we can get that to focus. I really like the lettering, and I like some of these touches as well too, with that lettering, just laying it on a bit of a different plane. And then again, using kind of mazes and almost optical effects there, or optical illusions there. And then we had pierced the apex of this black hole in space. We had broken through the other side, counter dimension of anti-being. Hey, Weird Dad, how's it going, man? So when we reach the end, they start to kind of continue. They start to make their descent back down, and it ends off with this force of his spell filling us upside down, our two bodies slowly joining into one. We felt ourselves being hurled backwards through space and time into some strange ancient age, which then leads us to Comic Crazy. Hello. Which then leads us to the Conen, the barbarian side here. And again, I couldn't find really much information about this particular Thompson book, talking about him and some of the other books, but there's not much written about this one. So I don't really know a lot about this particular style of his. I'm guessing that it's his. Again, we've spoken about it before. I can only assume, just due to the amount of this style of work that's in this side. No, 1973, Damien. So I don't really know the origin of the art style that we're going to see here. If you look back at some of the other Thompson videos that I've done, Russ and Earl Grey were throwing around some names in those ones. And I mean, my art knowledge of kind of is very, very lacking, to say the least. So I should have pulled that up just for some reference. But I mean, some beautiful work here nonetheless. And this is kind of how this next story is laid out. I haven't read this one yet. I wanted to kind of go live before I just kind of got really full into reading. Yeah, I mean, that was my thought too, Damien. Like, it looks like a series of etchings that aren't his. But again, I just don't know enough. And there's no, let me just double check. Yeah, no, there's really no credit. We'll flip back to the beginning, but I don't remember seeing anything. And I mean, as much as he ripped off or kind of used Conan and Dr. Strange a little bit, I mean, what do I know about ripping off people's art to make something new? but I'm incredibly happy that I was able to grab this one. I mean, like I said, I've been looking for it for quite a while, and it's just always been way out of reach. Even tonight, when I was doing some research on this, um, seeing some that are on sale on other sites, like the prices that people are asking for this are kind of ridiculous, if I'm honest. Yeah, it's a limited thing for sure, but I mean, Jesus, man, I saw one today. Someone was asking like $1,600 for it, which is just madness, I think. But I mean, it is a bit of a one of a kind for sure. I can't say, and again, even in underground comics, I can't say I've encountered anybody quite like John Thompson. Very singular, and especially in the world of these underground artists who are trying their best to offend and push boundaries. He just didn't fall into that. He may have just been inspired by old etchings. Yeah, absolutely. That could very well be. It's really, really nice stuff, though. I was hoping Russ would have been able to join us, because I'm sure there would be some information that he would have for us, because he mentioned it in one of the comments too, that it was a book that he had always wanted to get his hands on. Conen story looks more straightforward, closer to the source. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a different tone, 100%. I'm going to read this after we're done here. I'm going to sit and read it. And I mean, it's in beautiful shape. It was shipped really nicely. And then at the end, we get kind of a mirror of what happened here, except we felt ourselves being hurled forward through space and time into some strange future age. So sort of just continually cycling rather, back and forth between the two stories. Let's flip to the front again. Just see if we can see any other information. Like I said, I don't think there was, though. Limited 1973. No, nothing else. So there we go, everybody. Adventures of Dr. Strenge and Conen the Barbarian. Thanks very much for tuning in. I've loved doing this dive into these artists. And like I was saying, if you caught the live stream with Rasa and myself, the plan is to do a bunch of these, and I'll probably end up pre-recording them and just kind of saving them. And we'll take a look through some undergrounds, and we will kind of see what else we can discover in the boxes. Thanks very much, everybody. Comic Crazy Weird Dad, Sleepy Reader. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you.